Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Manchester United podcast. I'm your host for this evening, Niall Hannigan, and I'm joined by Kieran McGinley. It's the OGs for this one. Kieran, how are you getting on?
Well, I suppose worse than you were, because you were actually at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium again for this fixture again. When will you learn, Niall? This fixture is nothing but trouble for you.
Yeah, at some stage I'm going to have to look at myself and judge my own decisions, never mind the guys on the pitch. But yeah, 3 times I've been to a Spurs United fixture this season, and all of them have ended in defeats, and fully deserved as well. So yeah, my Christmas present from my dad didn't turn out as planned, but we moved. Not that I was shocked, but yeah, lot to unpack there from the weekend.
Yeah, and I mean the guys yesterday, Cormac and Tom, pretty much summed it up really with those player ratings. Mostly 5s across the board, has to be said. Not surprising, but I suppose we better dive into it and see and try and work out where it kind of went wrong and what lessons we can learn. But yeah, feels like we're being held back 2 or 3 years. If we were in America, we'd be 3 years behind everybody else at this point.
I know, and it's a familiar story. And the thing is, the expectations are so low for this team now at the moment, where it wasn't really a surprise going into the game. Watching the first 10 to 20 minutes was up there with some of the worst performances we've had. Couldn't get on the ball at all. I think the first 20 minutes was like 70-something% possession for Spurs, and we couldn't get a handle at all on it. Midfield was being overrun completely. I think we knew that based off the lineup with Casemiro in there. He was always going to struggle, and Bruno having to do the majority of the running in midfield with 3 very technically good players from a Spurs perspective. So that was always going to be a long afternoon for him. But yeah, I mean, we were down to the bare bones. We had a lot of kids on the bench, along with Lindelof, so there wasn't the team kind of picked itself, I suppose. But I
was going to say, like, Lindelof being broken out into the bench, it was like, what year is this? What's going on?
Yeah.
I just wasn't expecting it. But
exactly.
Apparently, yeah, mixtures of viruses and illnesses and injuries, and yeah, it really hurt us going into this.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough to watch as well. I mean, you kind of go with the back 3. You'd be comfortable enough with that back 3, considering what we have at the moment. I think Dallo, I was happy to see that he was actually on the right-hand side for a change rather than trying to cut in from the left-hand side. And to be fair, I'd say Patrick Dorgu is one of the bright sparks from a United perspective. Tried hard, was a willing runner, had a couple of times where decent end ball and a bit of quality in the final third, and sometimes just didn't really work out for him, but definitely tried hard. And yeah, that's what it's come to, Kieran. We're talking about players that actually start running a bit and can actually produce something, because yeah, there wasn't a lot to shout about.
No, not really at all. I mean, we'll come onto the bench later, I'm sure, but yeah, that first half was it was bad. It was bad. And to be honest with you, that was 13 minutes in, they got that goal. And let's face it, it's a shot that should Onana be doing better? Well, we saw Vicario save a similar one in the second half. The only difference was that Xerxes was very clearly offside, and Maddison's just able to run through. He's clearly on. Yep. No one picks him up. And that back 3 is just stationary, watching as it happens. I know at some point, you're so late to react, or you sort of see it unfolding that it's like, actually, I should have been there. You're just sort of standing there watching on in horror, but it happens too often. It happens too often that the back 3 is just absolutely flabbergasted. I've been full of praise for them, because the back 3 has been, on the whole, it's not been our weakest element. I think that back 3 has been pretty strong, but we wouldn't have been talking about that a lot if our forwards were doing forward stuff, putting the ball in the back of the other net. We wouldn't be having this conversation about what were the back 3 doing, because on the whole, they contained Tottenham enough. I think we got away with it, but they contained Tottenham to enough just to concede the 1 goal.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack, because conversations that I had on the podcast a few weeks ago with Dan around, the defense probably is the area where you're not thinking needs as much bolstering as other areas, but it's also not good either. Like, you know, and in terms of being able to play out from the back and having those players on the ball, you know, we just seem to be penned in so easily compared to other teams. We automatically have a flat back five when we're trying to build out from the back, and then you're completely outnumbered around the rest of the pitch. You have 2 to 3 players pressing a back five, completely overloading everyone else, and the only option is to kind of hook a ball down the line to Hoyland or hook it into his chest with 3 men around him. Like, and Hoyland's been getting a lot of abuse, but watching that game yesterday, there's really nothing more he can do, to be honest. Like, the service he's getting is absolutely awful. Like, it's hopeful balls down the line, or it's kind of a clip ball into his chest with like no plan, even if he did win or did something with it. And yeah, I mean, the frustration in me is just unbelievable. Like, they're just so far off it. It's unbelievable compared to any other team. They weren't able to put any sort of a press on Spurs at any point in the game. Spurs were kind of dancing around them. I was concerned when Maddison was playing. I just knew that he was going to be loving it, considering he basically played a free role the whole game. The Roy Keane comment on the overlap this week was a great omen for him as well, saying, do you think the Spurs players are all delighted that Maddison's going to come back? Like, what difference will Maddison make? And then, of course, he makes a TikTok out of it. I was like, I just knew as soon as he was going over, shushing the camera, I was like, this man, honestly, he does it always against United as well.
Well, it's funny you should say always against United. That was the first Premier League goal he scored against United, I believe.
Yeah?
I think so. Some magical stat out there.
He said
on the Sky Sports broadcast that apparently that was the first time he'd scored against United in the league. It doesn't feel like that. Because,
honestly, he played them off the park in Old Trafford. I felt like he scored. He was unbelievable that day.
Someone might have to fact check me on that one, but I'm pretty sure I heard that stat. Maybe it was just, you know, me believing that it wasn't that bad, but maybe it was. I don't know. To be honest, Spurs could have had 2 or 3 in that first half, and I wouldn't have been entirely surprised. We kept giving the ball back to them. There was no sense of, you know, cohesion in that first half. No one was clicking, which has been an all too familiar scene this season. And what I will say, you know, what didn't improve in the second half was Garnacho. And I feel like what Tom said yesterday was absolutely spot on. That was the game where Alejandro had to step up. He had to be the one that said, look, Ahmad's injured. Rashford's on loan. So is Anthony. Put your faith in me. And whilst he got into great positions, I can't deny that. He was really good at getting into the right positions. But what was it? The one he skied.
Yeah, I mean,
he gets himself in that perfect position. A really great first touch as well to set up perfectly. And I'm not quite sure how from 10 or 9 yards out, it's almost like he watched American football the weekend before, because it's gone so far over. I genuinely don't believe how he did that. I can't wrap my head around it. But I thought as well, you know, when we get into the second half, you know, there's some work to be done down that left-hand side between Garnacho and Dorgu, because all too often Garnacho was completely ignoring the overlap that Dorgu was trying to create for him, just completely blanked him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the chances that he had, it just kind of comes down to the whole team in general. You know, there's just a serious lack of quality across the pitch in all positions. If you were to pick a combined team between both teams that started yesterday, I don't think any of the United players would get in. And I don't think that's a mad statement to make. I think most people would probably agree with that. And that's with Spurs missing still a lot of players. And it was just so evident, you know, like there's no one from an opposition's perspective that would scare you from that United team. Mm-hmm. And Ahmad is probably the only player that would. But as we've said many a time, if you're relying on Ahmad, something seriously has gone wrong this season, because at the start of the season, if you were to say that, you would have been laughed out the gate. But he's become so important for us because he actually takes on players. He makes something happen by himself, and we just can't seem to be able to do that. Even teams that are, I was going to say teams that are lower than us, there's not many of them, but also,
5 left.
Yeah. Also, teams that you would say, you know, so-called weaker teams, they have X-factor players. Like, we don't. Like, we really don't, because now we've put Bruno back into even more of a defensive role, because he's really the only player in midfield that we can trust on the ball. And he can't really be his Flair self, because he's got to play the more disciplined game alongside Casemiro there in midfield. So it's a sorry sight. It really is. It's hard to watch at times, and I feel for those fans that have been cheering on a team that have been bad over the years, because it's a tough watch.
It's very tough. And we've got to somehow put up with the second half as well. Oh no, here we go.
Absolutely. Right, we'll take a quick break here, Kieran, compose ourselves, and then be back with a bit more in the second half.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
I tell you what, I might use that 40% discount to give a few to the Man United players, because anything could be better than what we're seeing at the moment. And I don't know if it's a bit stronger stuff than the supplements that Bioniq can give, but we need to give them something anyway. What do you think, Kieran?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I'll be completely honest with you. Yeah, they need to listen to their bodies. They really, really do. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, second half we improved, but it's almost like polishing an expletive compared to the first half. It's not the same. I thought, the first 20 minutes of that first half, we were all over Tottenham, and we had plenty of chances where, if we were more clinical, if we had strikers who had bags of confidence and the ability to be cutthroat in those games, in those positions, we could have got back into the game, and we probably could have gone on to win it had we had that killer instinct, but we didn't. And it just comes on to that ball in towards Xerxes. I think Xerxes playing a slightly deeper role in that game, I thought he was okay. No one in that team was good, let's be honest. I don't think anyone was good. You can't say that. But I think Xerxes was the best out of a really poor performance. His hold-up play was good. He was bringing players in. He was trying to, he was even getting some nutmegs out as well. Why not? He's starting to build that confidence. Shame he didn't cap it off with a goal. And what really summed up our sort of woes going forward and the woes in front of goal was the miscue from Joshua himself. He completely misses the ball to, a jeer from the crowd. And you just sort of think that sums it up for me. We're not in any way looking like we're ever going to score in this game. You could have given us no keeper and 180 minutes, and we probably would have scored at the other end.
Yeah, and it basically is no keeper with Vicario in nets as well. So, and we still couldn't put anything past him. I was delighted when he was back in the Spurs team.
You say that.
I think the other keeper is way better, I think.
I don't know. I think Vicario and Kinski is much more... there's a certain word for it, eccentric. But I think that can benefit you if you're a sweeper keeper. I think he's more calm on the ball, but Vicario was pulling out some good stops. I mean, there was one that Garnacho absolutely skied, but Garnacho wrapped his foot around one of them. It was heading into the top corner, and Vicario just pulls out that save. And again, it's just like, it was one of those days where even if we got the shot on target, there was something or someone to block it. It was one of those. But I just think there's underlying problems here, and underlying problems is sort of the message of the day. When we get to that second half, and I'm expecting, there's a bench full of players that have never played in the Premier League before, and Victor Lindelof. I'm expecting at least one of them to come on with maybe 20 minutes to go, 25 minutes to go, and make a name for themselves. And there was one sub, Chido Obi Martin, 3 minutes of added time. He's brought on in the 91st. What's he going to do in 2 minutes? That's a disgrace. It's an utter disgrace. I know you're trying to give your senior players. Yeah, maybe you've got 12 senior players. Okay. But those 12 senior or 11 senior players who are on the pitch at that time with Lindelof on the bench have done nothing. So give this whole thing of, wait until the 90th minute and then make a substitution. Oh, I'll just make one because then I can make a sub. It's pointless. What is Tudor going to do? He has proven himself in the youth ranks to be given a chance in this team, and I don't know why he hasn't. The guys mentioned yesterday, and you yourself have mentioned as well at some point on this podcast, Harry Amas still on the bench, still not used. We've brought in Patrick Dorgu to help out with the wing-back situation, but why haven't we given Amas a chance? There's plenty of talent on that bench. Aidan Heaven's on the bench as well, and we didn't use him. I was putting my money on Amorim substituting a centre-back. It's his favourite thing in the world to do. But you've got a bench of 9 players. They might be youth players, but if this injury crisis is really as bad as it seems, and we've got players out for 4 weeks, then we shouldn't be having players play the full 90 minutes when we've got 5 sub to use from a bench of 9. It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. It was embarrassing, really, to be honest. And at the match and seeing them all warm up, the only reason why Obi Martin got on was that man never sat down for the whole second half. It was ridiculous. Like, he was up and down the touchline. He was getting on that pitch 100%. And it was one of those ones where he's nearly like running in front of Amorim and warming up in front of him just to say, like, I'm here, put me on. But I remember putting out a tweet, I think it was after the Wolves game. I was like, please just pack in the whole first team and play the kids for the rest of the season, because at least they'll run about and kick someone and get something going. Like, you know what I mean? And they actually want to play for the club and they want to put in, like, it's not as if like the other players are performing to the top level anyway. And yes, there's the whole thing of, devaluing players, and the club probably won't let you do that and stuff, but that's a perfect opportunity where you actually have a bench full of youngsters and it's your hands being forced because of injuries or illness, for example. So there's no excuse. What would you rather lose 2-0?
Yeah. You dream of those scenarios when you're playing Football Manager or FIFA where you've got a really depleted squad and it's your chance to rebuild and you give the chance to the youth. You dream of situations like that. I can't see the decision, and I can't see how that decision was made to make one sub in stoppage time in the second half and that be it. Especially if you've got games further down the line. You could bring on the youth in 70 minutes, give them 20 minutes a run out, at least give them a chance. If we lose 2 or 3-0, let's be honest, we were not scoring no matter what. With the 11 players we had on the pitch, we weren't scoring. So why not roll the dice? What's going to happen? We concede another one? So what? We're already 1-0 down. You either roll the dice and try and get at least a point or get the 3, or you get egg on your face. It's like putting the keeper up for a corner when you're 1-0 down. Roll the dice. Why not? What have you got to lose? Another goal. It's already the 90th minute. Let's just go for it. I cannot foresee the decision, and I cannot understand the decision not to make any substitutes if this illness, whatever it may be, is infecting the squad. Sooner or later, it sounds like it's going to happen, giving youth a chance.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes against what United for as well in terms of giving youth a chance. But yeah, when it's forced upon you, it should be done. And also, it's not as if they're going into, the cauldron. Like, Spurs they're a good team, but at the moment they are seriously lacking in confidence as well. Like, you could feel it around the stadium. Like, you mentioned that 20-minute spell that United had in the second half. They were like, here we go again. We've had a great start. We've gone 1-0 up, and the amount of times that they've conceded a lead this year, you could feel it, the nervousness around the stadium, even until the last minute when the final whistle blew. Only then did they believe they were going to win that game, and that's how. And United were poor. Like, United were creating chances, but nothing like major. Like, United can't sustain pressure against any team. There was a few corners at times where it looked they might get something, but they were there for the taking. And if you do bring on a couple of fearless players that are just going to try some stuff and might give a bit of a boost to someone who, let's be honest, looking at the United players, they look completely devoid of confidence. Anything they try, they're kind of second guessing, and they're a second slow to it. And if you're a second slow to it in the Premier League, you're screwed. Like, so
yeah,
if anything, would give them a bit of a lift.
It was insulting to bring on Chiedo Martin.
It was, yeah.
Or Obi Martin that late on. You make that substitution when you're 3-0 up and wasting time. Or, you're 3-1, 3-2 up and you're trying to run down the clock. You don't do it when you're chasing the game. Insulting.
Yeah. And those 3 minutes, it was a free kick for Spurs, and then they kept it in the corner for another minute. And then, I don't think United touched the ball in the last 3 minutes, so it was pretty embarrassing. But yeah, that had to be a talking point, because it was just so obvious that he wasn't going to make a sub. Like, if you're not making a sub on the half an hour, and normally he's made a lot of subs this year, like you said, in the back line, he was like, oh, well, that's it. None of them are going to get on,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, we'll take another break, and we have to do another segment on this, Kieran.
Another one?
Let's see, yeah.
Another one?
See how we get on.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Can we forfeit the season? Like, I know it's I know it's we're nearly at the end of the season anyway, and all I can think of is that career mode Mikel Arteta with his hand over his face and
just delete club.
Career mode, just delete club. Like, but I would love. I was actually chatting about this with my parents because they were over for the match, and they were like, "Oh, what's that thing you do in fantasy football? The wild card?" I was like, "Yeah, that would be lovely, except we won't be able to get any money back for these players. So we'd actually have to start and build up from scratch. With wildcard, at least you can sell them for the price that they currently are. You're not losing money in the market. So that would be great, but we can't do that, which means it's going to be an extremely long road back.
Yeah. I mean, to highlight two moments of the podcast, both involving us, which says a lot when you think about it. I'm just reading a stat here from The Analyst, my favourite place to get any of these bizarre stats. It reads, and you'll like this now, Manchester United have lost 12 of their 25 Premier League games this season, 8 wins and 5 draws, which is now their most defeats from their first 25 matches of a league campaign since 1973-74. which we lost 13, and that was the last time, the 73-74 season, we were relegated from the top flight. That clip's going to come back to haunt us, and I'll tell you the other clip that's going to come back to haunt us. Play Mick McCarthy. Here he comes. It can get worse. It is getting worse, because now we've only got 12 players, 12 senior players who are starting these games. Oh my goodness, this is bad. This is really bad. I didn't think it could get much worse. I thought it was a case of, we'll be mid-table mediocrity. We'll pick up a point or 3 points here and there. But it's actually dangerously bad. Okay, we're 12 points up from the drop, but Ipswich are picking up points. Leicester, I think, were unlucky. Have been unlucky the last couple of games. Southampton, I think, is the only shoe, but I wouldn't actually rule anything out at this stage. I'm trying to work out now how many games left. 30. They could still catch us. They could 20 points behind. They could still catch us. Nothing is guaranteed in this one. I've lost the plot, and I'm here for it now. So here we go.
I said that we'll be on the Daily Championship next year with the podcast, so that could be on the cards, but we might be the most viewed or listened to Daily Championship, so that also is something to look forward to.
I don't know, Leeds will be up there, I reckon.
True, yeah, we might lose our sponsorship, but we'll still be there. We'll still be there talking into the abyss.
Oh, it's getting bad, isn't it? We're losing our minds over here. Niall and I have just seen it all from the start. Oh, remember at the start of the season when we were so full of optimism?
So positive. Honestly, the amount of people that have said to me, you should go back and listen to the first episodes that you did at the start of the season, because you guys were on cloud nine talking about FA Cup wins, giving Ten Hag another year. Oh, look at the window we've had. 2 new bombshells with De Ligt and Mazraoui, and then look at us, 15th.
Yeah,
in February.
Yeah. You basically said. I said we could fall as low as 16th when I was on the preview on the Friday. I didn't actually think, we could fall as low as 15th or 16th, but no, we have. The evidence is clear on the Premier League side. We are 31 points off of Liverpool. Mind the gap. I didn't think it could really get that bad. I'll be completely honest with you, but there we go. And I suppose the only thing left now is to look forward to our next game. And look forward is very much an understatement, because it's against Everton away at Goodison Park. Guess what? Everton have just gone above us.
The most informed team in the world, but 31 points at Liverpool. You'll never sing that. Happy days.
You will never sing that. You'll never sing that.
I'm looking at these fixtures, Kieran, and I am concerned.
You say this a lot. We say this a lot, though.
But like, to be fair, I did say that near the start of the season. I was like, this is going to be long. Everyone's like, yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Everton, Ipswich picked up a big point against Villa.
Yeah.
Like, we're nowhere near Villa. Then we've got Arsenal, brilliant. Then we've got Leicester, a real 6-pointer. Then we've got Forest.
Oh no, not
going
Chris
for
Wood.
Champions League. We've got Man City, happy days. Newcastle, lovely. Wolves battered us. Bournemouth battered us. Brentford always beat us. West Ham, 6-pointer. Chelsea and Villa. How many wins there? How many wins are we thinking?
I don't want to say because it could be as bad as my Europa League prediction, but I genuinely don't know where these points are going to come from. You would think if we are serious about this, we should be putting up a fight against Everton. These are two teams that should be, gritting their teeth and bit between their teeth. But honestly, Moyes has got Everton firing on all the cylinders. He's been phenomenal since his return. So I can see that being a tough game. I would think, just slip Kieran McKenna an envelope with £20 in it and be like, look, I know you managed some of the youth at Manchester United. You know some of these players. You just let us off. But I imagine Liam Delap will not get the memo. I imagine I've always been a fan of Liam Delap. He is a good player. I think he's kept and bailed Ipswich out countless times this season. And then we've got Fulham again. They're going for top half of the table. They've been hot and cold this season. When they're performing, they are
what have
really
we been
good to watch. Well, mainly cold, yeah. We're that pizza you left in the oven overnight and completely forgot about. You just burnt to a crisp and cold.
The one that used to be good, like it used to be good, and then now it's just miserable at the back of the freezer. Yeah. I honestly think I'm going to make a prediction now that we will only win one of those games in the Premier League, and that's
I guarantee you it's
the Leicester game. That'll be the rest. And we'll get a couple of draws. I think we'll get a few draws. We'll probably draw against City and Arsenal, and then lose the rest of them.
Think about this, because this team has already proven against the big teams, because we now have to call them the big teams, because right now we are a very little team. Against the big performers, we've actually done okay. Okay, Tottenham blew us out of the park, but again, I'm talking about big performers this season. Teams that aren't struggling. We have had that siege mentality. We've managed to get something out of games. Some of them have ended in, tight losses, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Kieran.
But the problem is, those tight losses against teams like Arsenal or Chelsea or Liverpool, anything like that.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world, because we're not in the greatest of form. The ones that hurt are where we're absolutely torn apart by teams we should be beating. And
in the history books we should be beaten, but they're just way better. They're just way better teams. Like when you actually boil down their players and the way they play, and actually watching the games, like the Wolves and the Southampton games, like Southampton, we should have lost twice to Southampton, and we got away with both of them.
Yep.
It's not good. It is not good. I think we might survive the drop though. But like, I think we might.
13 games to go, 12 points above relegation. This could be squeaky bum time, but absolutely the wrong end of the table.
Wrong end of the table. Yeah.
How did honestly, could you see Sir Alex predict anything like this, where it's squeaky bum time, but in terms of actually staying up?
Incredible. Could you imagine both Manchester clubs in the Championship next year? How much money would you have won on that, do you reckon? If you put money on City and United starting the league next year in the Championship?
I'll be honest with you. Anything could happen, We've managed to progress in the FA Cup somehow twice.
We're in the Europa League as well.
We're in the Europa League knockouts and not having to play a playoff game either. Again, I don't really know. I would absolutely happily just put the kids out against our next opponent in the FA Cup, which eludes me at this time.
Fulham.
Fulham. I would happily put out the kids in that FA Cup game, and I would happily bow out of the Europa League if it meant we could actually have some players that care about staying up. because they're all playing like they haven't got relegation wage cuts in their contract, and it shows.
Yeah, true. I actually think, yeah, that is true. That's very true. I actually really want us to win the Europa League, just to be in Champions League next year, in the Championship.
Championship League.
League.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's episode 111 today. Like, we should be calling 911 for this season, because it is atrocious. Atrocious, I think, is the only word for it.
Isn't it? Yeah. Although next episode is 112, which is the helpline for all Europe. So all I'm saying is, fingers crossed, A lifeline comes soon.
Yeah, and that's a wildcard episode. So, I mean, what do we do? Glory days?
We do a lot of those recently. I can't think why.
Yeah, it's tough out here, but yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed listening along, it's just as chaotic as United at the moment. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we've got a new ad as well. I hope you like the new ad. Make sure to check out some of your supplements, and yeah, we're on YouTube, as Kieran always brings up, that you can see our faces now as well. So we're things are going well over here. The podcast, we're flying it, and check us out on the social media channels as well to see all of our tweets about how well United are doing. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Kieran, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you're not too down about it. But yeah,
it is what it is. Roll on the next one.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.